This happened in February of 2023 in the mountains of Colorado. Jake was driving home from visiting his parents. It was about 9 p.m., and the weather forecast had predicted light snow. Nothing serious. He'd driven this mountain road hundreds of times, knew every curve, every turn, every steep drop. It was a familiar route, one he felt comfortable with even in bad weather. But within 20 minutes, the light snow turned into a full blizzard. The wind picked up suddenly, shaking his car violently. Visibility dropped to almost zero. The road disappeared completely under a blanket of white, and the lane markings vanished. Jake slowed down to 15 miles per hour, gripping the steering wheel tight, trying desperately to follow the faint outline of the road. His headlights barely cut through the wall of snow. That's when his car slid off into a ditch. It happened so fast. 1 second he was on the road, the next his car was tilted at an angle, front wheels buried deep in snow. He tried to reverse. The wheels just spun, whining uselessly. He tried rocking the car back and forth. Nothing worked. He was stuck. Completely trapped. Jake checked his phone with shaking hands. No signal. Not even one bar. The nearest town was 12 miles back, and in this storm, walking was suicide. The temperature had already dropped to what felt like 10 degrees. His only option was to wait in the car and hope someone would pass by, though he knew that was unlikely. Nobody drove this road at night during storms. He kept the engine running for heat, but he knew he couldn't do that all night. He'd run out of gas, or worse, carbon monoxide could build up. Around 11 p.m., he shut off the engine to conserve fuel. The temperature inside dropped fast. Within minutes, he could see his breath forming clouds in front of his face. The windows started frosting over from the inside. He wrapped himself in the emergency blanket from his trunk and tried to stay calm. He told himself the storm would pass, that morning would come. That's when he saw the light. Through the curtain of falling snow, maybe 100 yards away in the darkness, there was a light moving, swaying back and forth in a rhythmic pattern, like someone carrying a lantern through the trees. Jake's heart jumped with hope. Someone was out there. Maybe they could help. Maybe they had a phone or knew of a cabin nearby. He honked his horn desperately. 3 long blasts that echoed through the forest. The light stopped moving immediately. Everything was still except for the wind and the endless snow. Then slowly it started coming toward him. Jake felt relief. He rolled down his window slightly and the freezing air bit at his face. He shouted into the storm, "I'm stuck. I need help." His voice was swallowed by the wind. No response. Just the light getting closer, swaying side to side in that strange pattern. As it got nearer, Jake realized something was wrong. The light wasn't moving like someone walking through snow. It was too smooth, too deliberate, like it was gliding over the snow. And there was no sound. No footsteps crunching. No breathing. No voice calling back. Nothing. Just silence and the howling wind. The light stopped about 30 feet from his car. Jake could barely make out a shape behind it. A figure. Tall, maybe 6.5 feet. Wearing something dark that blended into the night. Just standing there in the blizzard, completely still, holding the light. "Hello." Jake called out, his voice cracking. "Can you help me?" The figure didn't respond. Didn't move. Didn't even acknowledge him. Just stood there like a statue. Jake's relief turned to unease. Something felt deeply wrong. The way the figure stood, the way it didn't react, the silence. He tried again, louder. "Do you have a phone?" Still nothing. Then the figure tilted its head. Slowly. Unnaturally. Like it was studying him. Jake's instinct kicked in hard. Every nerve screamed danger. He rolled up his window quickly and locked all the doors. The figure started walking again. Not toward the road. Toward the driver's side of his car. Directly toward him. As it got closer, Jake could see it better through the frosted window. It was a person or looked like one, but something was off. The way it moved. Too stiff. Too measured. Each step perfectly placed. And its face, he couldn't see its face clearly. It was covered in shadow. The figure stopped right next to his window. Just inches away. The lantern light illuminated the inside of his car, casting strange shadows. and then it knocked on the glass. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Knock, knock, knock. The exact same rhythm Jake had used on his horn. Jake's blood went cold. His heart hammered in his chest. He didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just stared at the dark shape outside. The figure knocked again. Same rhythm. Same intensity. Like it was mocking him. Then it spoke. The voice was muffled through the glass, but Jake heard it clearly. It sounded wrong, too flat, emotionless. Let me in. It's cold out here. Jake shook his head frantically. I can't. I don't know you. The figure stood there for a long moment. Then it said something that made Jake's stomach drop. You called for me. You honked your horn. You asked for help. Jake's mind raced. That was true. He had honked. He had called out. He had begged for help. But this didn't feel like help. I changed my mind, Jake said, his voice shaking. I'm fine. You can go. Heavy silence. Then the figure leaned closer to the window. So close its breath should be fogging the glass. Except there was no fog. No breath. The glass stayed perfectly clear. You're not fine, the voice said. You're freezing. You'll die out here. Let me in. I can keep you warm. Jake's hands were trembling. The figure knocked again. Harder this time. Let in. Jake started the car. The engine roared to life. He threw it in reverse and gunned it. The wheels spun uselessly in the snow. The figure didn't move. Just stood there watching. Then it walked around to the passenger side with those strange, stiff movements. Jake watched in the side mirror. Its movements were completely wrong. Like its joints bent in places they shouldn't. It tried the passenger door handle. But it tried again, pulling harder. Then it pressed its face against the window. And Jake saw it clearly for the first time. Its face was pale. Too pale. Like something that had never seen sun. And its eyes, they weren't right. They were too wide, too dark, like empty holes. Please, it whispered, and Jake could hear it through the glass. I'm so cold, Jake screamed. He laid on the horn. A long, continuous blast that shattered the silence. The figure stepped back slowly. And then it smiled. A wide smile that showed too many teeth. It turned and walked away. Back into the storm. The lantern light fading into the swirling snow until it disappeared. Jake sat there, shaking for what felt like hours. He didn't turn off the engine. Just waited and watched the darkness. At 6 a.m., the storm cleared enough for a snowplow to come through. They found Jake's car and pulled him out. He told them everything. They looked at him like he was in shock. Hypothermia can cause hallucinations, they said. But when Jake got home and looked at the photos he'd taken before leaving, there was something in the background of one photo. A figure. Standing at the edge of the tree line. Holding a lantern. The photo was taken 3 days before his trip. It had been waiting for him. This happened to my friend Sarah in the summer of 2022. She had just moved into a new apartment in downtown Portland. It was a small studio on the 4th floor of an old brick building. Nothing fancy, but it was affordable and close to her work. The first few weeks were normal. She'd come home, make dinner, watch TV, go to bed. Just regular life. But then she started noticing something strange. Every morning when she woke up, her apartment door was unlocked. Not open. Just unlocked. At first, she thought she was forgetting to lock it before bed. She'd been stressed with the new job, not sleeping well, so maybe she was just being careless. She made a mental note to be more careful. But it kept happening. Every single morning. Door unlocked. Sarah started getting paranoid. She'd check the lock 3, 4, 5 times before going to bed. She'd pull on the handle to make sure it was secure. Then she'd wake up, and it would be unlocked again. She thought maybe the lock was broken. Maybe it was faulty and just popping open during the night. So she called the landlord. He came by, checked the lock, tested it multiple times. It worked perfectly fine. No issues. He looked at her like she was crazy. After he left, Sarah decided to prove to herself she wasn't losing her mind. That night, before bed, she locked the door and then took a photo of the locked deadbolt with her phone. Time stamped. Evidence. The next morning, she woke up and immediately checked the door. Unlocked. She looked at the photo on her phone. Definitely locked when she went to bed. Her hands started shaking. Someone was coming into her apartment while she slept. Someone had a key, or knew how to pick locks. Someone was standing in her bedroom, watching her sleep, then unlocking the door on their way out. The thought made her sick. She called the landlord again, demanded he change the locks immediately. He agreed, probably just to shut her up. New locks installed that same day. Only 2 keys made. That night, Sarah barely slept. She kept one eye open, watching the door. Waiting. Nothing happened. Morning came. The door was still locked. She felt relief wash over her. Maybe it had been the landlord. Maybe he'd had a spare key he didn't tell her about. Maybe he was some kind of creep. But the new locks fixed it. 2 nights passed. Doors stayed locked both mornings. Sarah started sleeping normally again. Then on the 3rd night, she woke up around 3 a.m. She wasn't sure why. No noise. No movement. Just suddenly awake. The room was dark except for the streetlight glow coming through the curtains. She lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to fall back asleep. That's when she heard it. The softest sound. Like fabric brushing against fabric. It was coming from near the door. Sarah's heart stopped. She didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just listened. There it was again. A soft shuffling sound. Someone was in her apartment. Standing by the door. In the darkness. Sarah wanted to scream but her voice wouldn't work. She wanted to run but her body was frozen. She just lay there, paralyzed with fear, listening to someone moving around her apartment in the dark. The shuffling sound moved. Slowly. Coming closer to the bed. Sarah could hear breathing now. Slow. Steady. Someone was standing at the foot of her bed. Just standing there. Watching her. She kept her eyes closed, pretending to be asleep. Praying they'd just leave. Minutes passed. Hours. She couldn't tell. Time felt frozen. Then she heard footsteps. Moving away from the bed. Back toward the door. She heard the deadbolt turn. The door opened. She was alone. Sarah lay there shaking until sunrise. She didn't call the police. What would she tell them? Someone broke in but didn't take anything? Didn't hurt her? Just stood there? They'd think she was insane. Instead, she set up her laptop that night. Positioned it on her dresser, facing the door. Started recording before she went to bed. She had to know. Had to see who was doing this. The next morning, Sarah woke up and immediately checked the door. Unlocked. She grabbed her laptop and opened the video file. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely control the mouse. The video started. She watched herself get into bed, turn off the light. The room went dark except for the laptop's camera light. For 2 hours, nothing. Just her sleeping. Then at 2:47 a.m., the door opened. Sarah's blood went cold. A figure stepped inside. Thin. Wearing dark clothes. But the face was completely obscured. Covered with something. The figure stood in the doorway for a long moment. Just standing there. Looking at the bed. Looking at her. Then it moved. Slowly. Walking toward the bed. It stopped at the foot of the bed. Just like she remembered. Just standing there. Watching. Sarah watched the video in horror. She could see herself sleeping. Completely vulnerable. The figure stood there for exactly 8 minutes. She counted. 8 minutes of standing perfectly still. Watching her sleep. Then it turned and walked to the door. Reached out and unlocked the deadbolt. Opened the door. And left. But before the door closed, the figure turned back. Looked directly at the camera. And waved. Sarah screamed. She grabbed her keys and ran out of the apartment. Went straight to the police. Showed them the video. They took it seriously this time. Reviewed the footage. Enhanced the image. But they couldn't identify who it was. The figure's face was covered with some kind of mask. No distinguishing features. Nothing. They checked the building's security cameras. Nothing. No one entered or exited the building at that time. They dusted for prints. Nothing. It was like a ghost. The police suggested she move. She did. That same day. Stayed with friends while she found a new place. She never went back to that apartment. Never even got her security deposit. Just left everything and ran. But here's the part that still haunts her. 2 months later, Sarah was scrolling through her phone, looking at old photos. She found one she didn't remember taking. It was dated from her second week in that apartment. Before the unlocking started, it was a photo taken from inside her closet, looking out at her bed, at her sleeping. Someone had been in her apartment from the very beginning, watching her, taking photos, and she never knew. This story comes from a college student named Marcus who was living in a dorm room at the University of Michigan. It was his sophomore year, and he'd requested a single room. No roommate, just him. He liked his privacy and the quiet space to study. The room was small but comfortable. Bed, desk, closet, mini fridge. Everything he needed. For the first month, everything was fine. Marcus would go to class, come back, do homework, sleep. Normal college life. But then he started noticing his things were being moved. Small things at first. His textbook would be on the wrong side of the desk. His shoes would be facing a different direction. His lamp would be unplugged. Marcus figured he was just tired and forgetting where he'd put things. College was stressful. He wasn't sleeping much. His memory was probably just foggy. But then it got worse. He'd come back to his room and find his closet door open when he knew he'd closed it. His desk chair would be pulled out. His bed would be made differently than how he'd left it. Someone was coming into his room. Marcus went to the RA and complained. The RA checked the records. Only Marcus had a key to that room. The master key was locked in the RA's office, and it hadn't been signed out. No one else had access. Maybe you're sleepwalking, the RA suggested. Maybe you're doing these things and not remembering. Marcus didn't think so, but he couldn't prove it. So he decided to test it. One afternoon before leaving for class, Marcus set up a simple trap. He placed a hair across his closet door, stuck there with tiny pieces of tape. If someone opened the closet, the hair would fall. When he came back 3 hours later, the hair was on the floor. Someone had opened his closet while he was gone. His heart started racing. He checked his belongings. Nothing was missing. Everything was there. But someone had definitely been inside. Marcus went to campus security. Filed a report. They said they'd look into it but seemed skeptical. That night, Marcus barely slept. He kept waking up, checking the door, looking around the dark room. Every shadow looked like a person. Every sound was someone breaking in. At around 4 a.m., exhausted, he finally fell into a deep sleep. He woke up at 8 a.m. to his alarm. Groggy and disoriented, he sat up in bed. Then he noticed something on his desk. A piece of paper. He didn't remember putting any paper there. Marcus got out of bed and walked over. The paper had writing on it. Messy handwriting in black ink. It said, "I watch you sleep." Marcus felt his stomach drop. His hands started shaking. Someone had been in his room. While he was sleeping. Had written him a note. And he hadn't heard a thing. He grabbed the note and ran to campus security. Showed them. They took it seriously this time. Checked the hallway cameras. But the cameras had been down for maintenance that night. No footage. They dusted his room for fingerprints. Found nothing but his own. They changed his lock. Gave him a new key. Told him to keep his door locked at all times and report anything suspicious. For 2 days, nothing happened. Marcus started to relax. Maybe whoever it was had been scared off by security. Maybe it was over. Then on the third night, Marcus woke up suddenly. It was dark. Silent. He looked at his phone. 3:33 a.m. He wasn't sure why he'd woken up. Then he heard it. Breathing. Not his own. Someone else was in the room. Marcus froze. His eyes adjusted to the darkness. And that's when he saw the shape. Standing in the corner of his room. Next to the closet. Completely still. Just standing there. Marcus couldn't move. Couldn't scream. His body wouldn't respond. He just stared at the dark figure in his room. How long had it been standing there? Had it been there when he fell asleep? The figure didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stood there in the corner. Watching him. Minutes passed. Marcus's heart was pounding so hard he thought it would explode. Finally, he forced himself to move. He reached for his phone. Turned on the flashlight. The corner was empty. No one there. Marcus jumped out of bed and turned on every light in the room. Checked the closet. Under the bed. The bathroom. Nothing. No one. The door was still locked from the inside. Windows closed. He was alone. But he knew what he'd seen. Someone had been standing in that corner, watching him sleep. Marcus didn't sleep the rest of the night. When morning came, he started packing. He was done. He'd move back home. Commute to campus. Whatever it took. As he was packing his clothes, he found something in his closet. Behind his winter coats. A small hole in the wall. About the size of a quarter. Marcus pulled out his phone and turned on the flashlight. Shined it through the hole. It led directly into the room next door. The room that was supposed to be empty. Under renovation. Marcus's blood went cold. He ran out and got the RA. They opened the empty room next door. It was dark inside. Furniture covered in sheets. But in the corner, right where the hole was, someone had set up a chair. Facing the wall. Facing the hole. And on the floor next to the chair were dozens of photographs. All of Marcus. Sleeping in his bed. Eating at his desk. Getting dressed. Studying. All taken from that hole in the wall. Someone had been living in the empty room. Watching him for weeks. The police were called. The room was investigated. But they never found who it was. No fingerprints. No DNA. Nothing. The hole had been drilled carefully. Professionally. Someone had planned this. Marcus transferred schools the next semester. But he still thinks about it. About all those nights he slept in that room. Never knowing someone was watching him through the wall. Never knowing how close they really were. And the worst part? 2 months after he left, he got an email from an unknown address. No subject line. Just one sentence. I know where you moved to.